Hey golfers, if you don't do this one move with your lead arm in the golf swing, you will never hit the ball the way that you want to. Every single good ball striker does this one move, and most every single amateur that struggles does not. So make sure you stay tuned, and we are going to learn what our lead arm should be doing in our downswing and how it can transform your ball striking. Okay golfers, today's video is all about our lead arm in the downswing, what it should be doing, and what it's probably doing for you if you're not hitting the ball the way that you want to. So like I said in the intro, we could have a perfect backswing with a perfectly square club face, right on plane. But so many golfers in the transition and into the downswing then get that club face too open, and then we get real wristy and scoopy, trying to square the club face up with our wrist versus the correct way. So if you struggle with compressing the golf ball, if you struggle with squaring the club face up, hitting a lot of shots to the right, and even if they do go straight, they just don't feel very compressed, not taking that divot after the golf ball, then this video is definitely for you, and you want to pay attention to what our lead arm should be doing to help us achieve that ideal impact position to where the club face is square, we have the handle shaft leaning forward through impact, and we can get that nice crisp contact and optimal ball flight. Okay, so we're gonna assume that our backswing is in a good place. Okay, we're gonna assume that we have a decent grip. If you don't know if your grip is decent, then we've gotta get that correct first. So we're gonna assume that we have a decent grip. We're gonna assume that we have a pretty good backswing. If we have a good backswing, at the top of our swing, our lead wrist is gonna be roughly flat, okay? We might, depending on our grip style, or if our face is a little bit more closed, it might be slightly bowed. We definitely wanna make sure that it is not cupped this way, leaving that club face open at the top. So we're going to assume that we're in a good position in our backswing with a square club face. As we start down, the best ball strikers in the world have twice as much rotation of this lead arm than amateurs, twice as much. And they're doing it way earlier and way slower. Sounds pretty crazy, right? Because most amateurs, we get to the top. As we start down, our lead wrist now goes into this more cupped position where the knuckles are getting closer to my forearm. And you can see what that does to the club face. If my knuckles of my lead hand get closer to my lead wrist, that club face is going to be open, and you can see how that club face is going to be passing my hand and not in any sort of position that we want to be at impact. Opposite would be if my lead knuckles get further away from my wrist. Now that club face is in a more closed position, and that handle is now in front of the club head. Exactly what we want in an ideal impact position. So the best players in the world are getting the wrist in that position from the very beginning of the downswing and are able to maintain that square club face through impact without having to last minute kind of flash and try to square that club face up. Okay, so the position that we have to feel, we're going to talk about our lead arm, what we need it to do in the transition, and then through impact. So in the transition, assuming we have a nice square club face, we need to feel like this lead wrist, those knuckles are going to get further away from my wrist. So I always like the analogy is like if you're like revving a motorcycle, right? Kind of twisting the handle, okay? When I do this, and you'll even see some golfers that do this kind of significantly, and it does two things. One, it keeps the face square to slightly closed. And two, it actually also shallows the shaft a little bit. Versus the opposite, if my knuckles get closer to my lead wrist, steepens the shaft and opens that club face, which is just a disaster if we're trying to hit the ball well, right? And straight. So from the top, we need to feel knuckles working more away from my wrist as the arm lowers. And the ideal position that I personally like to see is when we are kind of halfway down in the downswing, you know, shaft roughly parallel to the ground. You can see how the grooves of the club face are pointing slightly towards the ground. And you'll see this in most of the best ball strikers. So by the time we're here, that club face is already in a great spot. My lead wrist is already very flat. Now I can rotate through impact and not have to feel like I have to adjust anything to get that club face square. Most amateurs, we get knuckles coming closer to our lead wrist, opening that club face. Now our brain is smarter than we think, and it is going to quickly have to make an adjustment with our wrist now to try to get that club face square. And so that's where we start to look more like this through impact, right? We kind of have this chicken wing look. This lead elbow starts to point up more towards the sky. I keep that club face open through impact, real wristy, adding loft, right? All things that are just a disaster recipe for a consistent, solid, straight golf shots. Okay, so in order for us to not have to react and use our wrist and get flippy through impact, we have to make sure that that club face is staying square, which is going to be controlled by the rotation of my lead arm and lead wrist, feeling those knuckles working more away from my forearm. And now from here, I can continue down through impact. Okay, so that's the first thing, is how we're feeling the lead wrist working in the transition. Now, we still, best players in the world, they're starting that rotation early, and it continues all the way through impact. So I think a lot of times amateurs get confused with trying to be less wristy and flippy with having some forearm rotation. So we call this kind of supination, if you want the technical term, of this lead arm kind of going palm up, pit of the elbow up. That is supination, and that is the move that is happening all the way through impact and post impact. So halfway down, if the patch of my glove is, let's just say, roughly pointing towards the camera here, by the time I come through and finish, that patch of the glove is now pointed behind me. So that's 180 degrees of rotation that is happening in a small part of my golf swing. And that is necessary and is happening with all the best ball strikers. So if you're somebody that's trying to not do anything with your arms and rotation, then you are missing out on a very crucial part of getting that club face square and a big speed component as well. So it is okay to have, and necessary to have, forearm rotation in our downswing through impact. Okay, so from the top, knuckles down. As I come through, I'm going to be feeling like the patch of my glove is going to end up behind me. And you can see when I do that, patch of the glove is behind me. I've rehinged the club, right? Versus if I'm somebody that gets this way, right? You can see where that club is. I have not rehinged the club. Club head stays way lower to the ground. This elbow is up, right? It looks very different than this motion right here. Patch of the glove behind me, club is rehinged. Okay, so now that we understand what we need to do, what can I do to drill this in to feel it? So my favorite drill is really just swinging some with just our left arm. Okay, so we'll take our trail arm off the club. We're gonna swing, we can kind of swing halfway back here where that lead wrist is fairly flat. As we go to the top and as we start down, again, feeling these knuckles starting to rotate away from my forearm. Okay, as that left arm drops close to my chest, and now through impact, feeling that rotation of the forearm, so the patch of my glove is now back behind me, and that club is rehinged. If I come down and get that face really open like this, that is going to be really bad shot. Might even miss it. Okay, so this is a really hard drill to do with a golf ball, but I encourage you to try it and to get the feel of how we are going to be able to make contact and try to get this ball to fly fairly straight. So it's going to look a little bit like this. Okay, so we're going to give this a try. This is a very challenging drill, so don't be concerned if you don't make perfect contact. The ball is definitely not going to go very far, but it's just the idea of getting the feel for how this lead arm should be working, how it should be rotating through the golf shot. So I'm going to also put my trail arm just kind of right underneath here just to give me a little support. So I'm feeling lead arm, lead wrist nice and flat. As I transition, if anything, feel those knuckles working away from my forearm. And then as I come through impact, feeling the patch of that glove working now back behind me through impact. Okay, let's give this a try. All right, that was pretty good there. Again, this is very challenging. Don't be expecting a lot, results-wise out of this, but we should feel that when we do hit the face, that these balls are flying fairly straight, maybe even to the left. Because if you're somebody that's been doing the opposite, where face is coming down open, right, then you've probably been hitting some shots kind of scoopy off to the right. So the cool thing about knowing if we're doing this correctly is that we'll get direct feedback from the golf ball. Pretty good one there. Okay. So it's a great drill to feel what that lead arm is doing, because in order for you to have a chance to even make any sort of contact, you have to have this rotation, this supination of this lead arm in order to deliver that club back to impact with a square club face and the shaft leaning forward in order to get the ball to go up in the air. Okay, so I promise you, if we can get the feeling of knuckles working away from us, continuing to feel that rotation through impact, patch of the glove away, that you're going to hit a lot straighter shots. And again, use the ball flight as feedback, right? If we are getting the club face square enough with solid contact, that ball is going to start on a straighter line. If the ball is continuing to start to the right, then we need to feel more rotation or feel it sooner. If you overdo it, you'll start to see that ball working left, because I love the kind of the analogy of, our left arm is a steering wheel of the club face, right? So whatever our patch of our glove is doing, so is the club face. So if at impact, the patch of our glove is pointed way off to the right, so is that club face. If the patch of our glove is pointed to the left at impact, so is the club face, right? So there's a direct correlation with the starting direction of our golf ball with the rotation of that lead arm and patch of your glove. So gotta feel getting the patch of the glove relatively back to where it was at address at impact, and then getting it pointing back away from us past impact and having that club rehinge on the other side. Okay, y'all, I hope this was helpful. Now you understand what this lead arm should be doing through the golf swing. For most of every single one of you watching this video, we need to feel more rotation, and it needs to be happening starting immediately as we get into the transition and all the way through impact. Let me know down in the comments if this was helpful. And if you would like to work with me a little bit more one-on-one, I promise you, if we can work together more individually, I can help you with your golf game and take you to the next level. So check out the Skillest app, and I have that link down in the description below. And I would love to work with you more individually on the issues that you have with your golf game. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.